One challenge in the fashion industry when we're dealing with apparel products is actually calculating the material requirements that go into making that product. Once again, if we're dealing with something like, say, for a shirt may be composed of fabric and just some buttons. Now, we generally develop a sample first, maybe a middle of the pack size, base our measurements off of that and figure out our material requirements from there. And then we have to figure out, well, when the sizes vary, how do my material requirements vary? In some cases, like in the case of the fabric, well, of course, the smaller the size, the less fabric you're going to use and vice versa. But for something like buttons that may go on a shirt, even though the size is varying and the fabric is varying, we may put the same 6 buttons on every single shirt size. Now, fortunately, in the Pebblestone Fashion solution, we have functionality that will greatly help you make this process more efficient, not only for doing the initial calculations of single material requirements, but also when you have demand out there or sales orders, functionality that will help you figure out what your total material requirements are to manufacture those goods. Now I'm going to start out with an item 20009. This is our style number. It's just a sweatshirt. I've told it comes in 3 different sizes, just small, medium, and large. And then I've also, just for simplistic purposes, told it comes in 2 different colors, which is basically an off-white and a black. Now, as I stated earlier, typically, we're going to base this off of some standard size, typically what our sample size was. So I'm going to say our standard bill of material is the medium off-white variant. So once we know all that information, I'm just going to pull up my assembly bill of material. And as you can see, it's made up of some cotton fabric and a zipper. I said in my example that this quantity per is 2 yards of material and 1 zipper. And then I've given it a rather unrealistic real-world growth rate, but for example purposes, this makes it much easier to follow the math. I'm telling it that it has a growth rate of 100%, meaning when the size goes down, the material is reduced by 100%. When it goes up, it's increased by 100% for each step in the increase. Now for the zipper though, I'm saying we're using just 1 zipper per item regardless of the size, so that has no growth rate. Once I've filled in all that information, and remember this is all based on my medium size, I can open up this matrix and it'll show me my quantity per for each size combination here. So as you can see, the quantity per on a small is 1 yard of fabric, 1 zipper. The medium, which was on my previous screen that all these calculations are based off of, is the 2 yards plus 1 zipper. Large, it goes up 100%, 4 yards and 1 zipper. So as you can see, it calculated all this in the background where I only had to specify a growth rate and my base calculation, or my base sample, in this case the medium, in order for it to do all those calculations. Now once again, I mentioned earlier, not only is it for just sample or basic information, but we also want to know, when I have quantities on demand, what is my total requirement going to be? And this is the case whether I'm going to manufacture the good, or maybe I have some overseas manufacturer manufacturing not only the entire finished product, but buying the materials for me. This includes, in my example, the fabric and the zipper. So I have on sales orders out here 6 shirts. And as you can see, it's just 1 large, medium, and small for both black and off-white. So I just have 6 shirts of each color. And if you remember, our large had a quantity of 4 yards. Our medium had a quantity of 2 yards of fabric. And our small had a quantity of 1 yard of fabric, which means for each color I should be purchasing a minimum of 7 yards of fabric. Now, that being said, I'm going to pull up our requirements worksheet. I'm going to tell it to calculate the plan, and I am just calculating it for the time frame in question, and I'm only doing it for our particular item to keep the data down on this example. So when I click on OK, it just tells me it's going to clear out any lines that I may already have in here. So if you remember correctly, said there were 6 shirts in total that were on demand. Now I have a quantity of cotton fabric of 14 yards and a total number of zippers of 6. Well, once again, if we take a look at our sublines, based on our previous conversation, we should have 7 yards of white and 7 yards of black, and that covers our 1 small, medium, and large finished product for each color. But each one has a total quantity, or each one only has 1 zipper for a total quantity of 6. And I can actually print out this requirement. Once again, in this case, I'm saying my vendor is purchasing all this, but I want to let the vendor know, or the manufacturer know, what to actually buy to complete my 6 pieces of the finished item. Well, you need 6 total zippers, and for each quantity of the different colors, you need 7 yards of each of the different colored fabric. Once again, this is just another way that the Pebblestone Fashion solution can make your life much easier and much more efficient. Thanks for listening on this one. I look forward to talking to you in the next demonstration.